Thanks, Carol. I'm Soledad O'Brien. The story is breaking at this hour. Hurricane Katrina, the monster storm bearing down on New Orleans, coastal Mississippi, and coastal Alabama. Katrina downgraded during the night, but she is still a very dangerous storm. Right now, about 75 miles southeast of New Orleans. You're looking at a live picture, if we can show that. We've got reporters live for us all along the Gulf Coast. They're in New Orleans to Mobile, Alabama. Miles O'Brien is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's about 70 miles north of New Orleans. Miles, good morning.
Good morning, Soledad. This is the nightmare scenario that many people have been talking about for so many years. The city of New Orleans, largely below sea level, protected by levees and pumps, now apparently headed for a direct hit with a very powerful hurricane, Category 4, borderline Category 5. Katrina with very strong winds, a very potentially devastating situation. Massive evacuations for the first time in history. The city of New Orleans under a mandatory evacuation, and a good portion of the 1.6 million people in the metropolitan area have made their way to higher ground. We are in higher ground as well. We're all 40 feet above sea level here in Baton Rouge, where there is less concern than there is in New Orleans, but nevertheless, within 100 miles of the eye of Katrina, in very short order, we should be feeling hurricane-force winds, so this is nothing to trifle with here either. CNN's Chad Myers is in the Weather Center. He's been watching this all night for us. Chad, what's the latest on Katrina?
The latest is in from the Hurricane Center here. I have some coordinates for you. A lot of you do track it at home. 28.9 north and 89.6 west. That's about 35 miles south-southeast of Grand Isle, Louisiana. Grand Isle, you're about to really get in it now, although you are still on the easy side, if there is such a thing. The winds there just gusted to 114 miles per hour. If you were on the other side, or the bad side of the eye, the winds there could be 130. Just nothing right there to measure it yet. The storm is now the eye wall coming on what we call the area here, the land of Louisiana, although you have to use that very sparingly because most of it's just swamp. That does not mean landfall. The official forecast for landfall happens when the center of the eye moves over land. That has not happened yet, but with the eye wall coming on shore and very, very heavy squalls, very close to Venice, winds there could be gusting to 125 at this point, as the storm is still that borderline Category 4, Category 5 storm. Here it is. It was making a line right at New Orleans on the east side and Baton Rouge on the west side. It should have, if it didn't turn, moved right through the area where our reporters are. But in the overnight hours, the storm turned a few degrees, probably 10 degrees there in the shift, now taking the storm farther to the north, which means Gulfport, Biloxi, Mobile, you are now more in the dangerous part than you were yesterday, as that's where I expect the eye to continue. I expect the eye to move east of New Orleans. Maybe New Orleans gets the western eye wall, which means winds there could still gust to 120, 125, but you're not going to get the 155 eastern eye wall unless it turns back to the left. Not expecting that, but these things wobble all the time. Here's the storm as it moves on up right there, all the way from about the Louisiana-Mississippi line over to Mobile, especially Bay St. Louis, past Christiane, over to Mobile, even into Pensacola. You guys are under the gun for the most dangerous part of this storm as it rolls on shore this morning. Still probably a couple hours from official, what we would call landfall, or swamp fall, if you will, down here. And then another landfall up here that will happen later on this afternoon into Mississippi, possibly Alabama. Miles.
Thank you very much, Chad Myers. Appreciate that. They don't call it the cone of uncertainty for nothing. As Chad just pointed out, even at this late stage, little wobbles in Katrina can make significant difference in what the impact will be in these parts of the Gulf shores. If, in fact, New Orleans is on the eye goes to the east of New Orleans, that could be good news for the city. That might mean less flooding potentially. Very difficult to say right now. But as you also heard Chad say, those cities to the east of New Orleans right now perhaps going to get more of the brunt than they had anticipated just a few hours ago. CNN Weather Department meteorologist Rob Marciano is in Biloxi, Mississippi, with more on that part of the story. Rob?
Hi, Miles. We've moved ourselves from last night. We were on the beach. Not a good place to be, obviously, when the storm surge comes in. So we're about 5 or 6 miles north of the beach, just north of I-10, which sits over my shoulder. The wind all now is coming in this direction, directly out of the east, paralleling I-10. the center of the storm puts it in that direction right over my shoulder, and you can see how the wind-driven rains are scooting just past the lights, which we'd like to point out there's still electricity here. We've easily seen wind gusts over 40 and 50 miles an hour throughout the morning, and obviously that's going to continue to increase. As this thing jogs a little bit to the east, even though it's only a Category 4 storm, the farther to the east it jogs, the better news it is for New Orleans, the worse news it is for Gulfport and Biloxi, Mississippi, two towns that were devastated by Hurricane Camille back in 1969. At this point, it looks like, thankfully, at least here it won't come ashore as a Category 5, but certainly we'll have damaging winds in the Category 4 category. So folks aren't looking forward to that. But right now, not too bad, Miles. I would expect things to continue to go downhill. Landfall in this area likely to be closer to 10, 11, maybe even noontime. So we're just beginning the ride here in Biloxi, Mississippi. We're trying to gather some information for you as far as what's been going around southern Mississippi for the past couple of hours. It's a little bit sparse right now, but we'll try to get that information for you as we go on throughout the morning. We'll report on the casinos, maybe get a report at a Keesler Air Force Base, see what the hurricane hunters are doing down there. They're based right here, ironically enough. So that's the latest stuff from Biloxi, Mississippi. Miles 5 to 6 miles off the beach. We don't want to be a part of any of that storm surge, but we're certainly going to get banged around with quite a bit of wind throughout the morning and throughout the rest of the afternoon.
Rob, in Biloxi, there, have you seen much evidence of people? Did everybody heed the warnings? Obviously, it's very early in the morning, but are they out looking at the surf or anything like that, or are people pretty much hunkered down?
Yeah, I haven't seen much in the way of the only one vehicle just passed by. It was a police officer. When we were down at the coast last night, there were some people goofing off, but the authorities down there gave him pretty stern talking to him, got him out. So at least as of last night, it looked like people were certainly heeding the warning. And this morning, there's no sign of life on the streets. So and right now, as far where we are, we're pretty protected, or we can be, and we can shift around a pretty secure building as the storm makes its turn and as those winds begin to shift around. So we're not going to be out goofing around in the storm either. We'll take all the precautions necessary to bring it to you in a safe manner.
All right, worth pointing out to our viewers, we're not goofing around. We're just trying to tell the story, and all of this is a calculated risk. Let's get close to the action and the concern. The city of New Orleans, a city that I was in yesterday and was talking with John Zarella, who we're about to hear from, about how best to cover a storm from there when you're talking about an entire downtown area that is below sea level. John joining us from the hotel right now where we were yesterday. John, what are you seeing so far, and where are you?
Well, we're actually up on the 10th floor of the hotel right now, looking out a window, and you can see the sheets of rain just sliding down the sides of these towering hotels here in the center of the city in the French Quarter. American flag is being whipped around. The trees down below us on the street level. There are some that are bending. No cars, no people, fortunately, on the streets right now. The rain is really beginning to pound against the windows here. So in the last hour, the situation has certainly gone downhill as far as the weather conditions here in the downtown area, in the French Quarter area, and that rain getting heavier and heavier and the wind picking up. You can see it just rolling through in sheets every few minutes. Then it subsides for a few minutes. Then it comes back again as another one of those strong rain bands and squalls come through. Now, many of the people who could not get out of New Orleans, there are about 100,000, they say, who just physically do not have the wherewithal, the means to get out, have been spending the night inside this Louisiana Superdome. They were in the Superdome, got in yesterday. About 12,000 to 15,000 in all made it into the Superdome. It took about 6 hours for a lot of those people to get in as the authorities went through and checked backpacks and checked all of the belongings that the folks were bringing in. And in fact, they did confiscate alcohol and in a couple of cases firearms that people were trying to bring in, those people who were going to be staying there. Now, right now, with Katrina at a 4 and perhaps maybe sliding a bit to the east of the city, that's still going to potentially, with the counterclockwise rotation, bring a tremendous amount of water up and into Lake Pontchartrain and then over the banks of Lake Pontchartrain and out through that hurricane protection levee that surrounds the city, perhaps overtopping the levee, which is only designed for a Category 3 hurricane. So the potential exists still for some terrible flooding here in the city of New Orleans. Now, the reason it's designed for a Category 3 goes back to 1965, Hurricane Betsy, which actually hit this city as a Category 3 storm. Some tremendous flooding in the city of New Orleans from Hurricane Betsy, which killed more than 50 people here in the city. And Betsy was the reason why they decided to build that hurricane protection barrier around the city of New Orleans. But again, Miles, as you know, 6 feet below sea level the city, and you put 10 more feet of water on top of that, it is certainly possible if the levee is breached or overtopped that you could see in some areas in excess of 15 feet of water in the city. That's still a real possibility here. Miles?
See, that's John Sorella in downtown New Orleans. Not since Hurricane Andrew in 1992, when it barreled through Miami and southern Florida, has a storm threatened the metropolitan area as much as this one, Katrina, bearing the brunt on New Orleans. While there is good news to report, maybe a slight shift to the east, still a very strong storm headed right for a very low-lying, susceptible city. Soledad?
Let's get more on this now, Miles. Thanks. Richard Knabb is a hurricane specialist. He's at the National Hurricane Center in Miami. Richard, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
We heard Chad describe Katrina as wobbling and shifting. Give us the when and the where. When is landfall? Where is landfall, as far as you know from your models right now?
Well, right now the hurricane is moving generally toward the north at about 15 miles per hour, and it's just to the east of Grand Isle, Louisiana. So the eye wall is actually onshore in extreme southeastern Louisiana, and during the morning hours is going to pass near or over New Orleans, and then by midday, early afternoon, we think the eye of the hurricane will be generally in the vicinity of the border between Louisiana and Mississippi. But as you say, hurricanes can wobble quite a bit as they're making landfall, so we can't be too exact on where the center is going to go, but it certainly is going to bring hurricane force winds to New Orleans. We're already seeing reports of wind gusts to hurricane force there, and the center could pass directly over or just to the east, perhaps, of the city. And we're also very concerned about the potential of very high storm surge on the coast of Mississippi, perhaps causing storm surge that could overtop the levees, as John mentioned, in New Orleans.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. A Category 4 storm. It's been downgraded from Category 5, but of course, downgraded is sort of a strange word to use because Category 4 is incredibly strong. What kind of damage could this storm do when it hits a low-lying city like New Orleans?
Well, any Category 4 hurricane has the potential of causing extreme damage. Hurricane Charlie last year was a Category 4 hurricane at landfall. But this is a larger hurricane, and this is impacting an area that is a little more susceptible to the impacts of storm surge. And so we could see storm surge values 18 to 22 feet. Perhaps on the Mississippi coast, we could see values as high as 28 feet. And if the levees are over top surrounding New Orleans, then we could see several feet of water inside the city as well.
In fact, that's what John was talking about, those levees being over top. Now, the levees, I believe, 17 feet high. So how likely is it that the storm surge, in fact, is going to overtop those levees?
Okay. Yeah, I'm told I've got about 30 seconds here, but I can answer that question. We think it's going to be very close, that the storm surge values are going to be very comparable to the height of many of the levees. So it's still very possible that the water could overtop some of those levees and cause flooding inside of the levee protection system.
Before I let you go, I know you got a few seconds left. The high winds, this could be another humongous problem, of course. I mean, some people are predicting that there are many, many homes that could be wiped out just by the winds.
Yes, that's very true. Winds could cause extensive damage with this hurricane.
Richard Knapp is a hurricane specialist at the National Hurricane Center. Richard, of course, we're going to continue to check in with you throughout the morning. Thanks for your time this morning. A short break. We're back in a moment. You're watching a little special coverage, early coverage from American Morning. We are covering the storm Katrina, Category 4, as it begins to come on land. We're going to follow it throughout the morning and the afternoon as well. Stay with us. A short break. We're back in a moment.
Watching CNN, your hurricane headquarters.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Miles O'Brien reporting live from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which, relatively speaking, is high ground. We're 40 feet above sea level where I stand right now, and the effects of Katrina being felt as those early so-called feeder bands of rain and wind start to come in, but nowhere near tropical storm levels, much less hurricane levels just yet. Having said that, given the strength of this storm and the size of this storm, it's very likely that hurricane-force winds will extend a 100-mile radius beyond the eye. We've been telling you just a few moments ago that the storm is wobbling a little bit right now, headed a little bit more to the right than it was prior. It was headed straight for the city of New Orleans, which, of course, sits very low below sea level and was of great concern. Any wobble to the right is good news for New Orleans, but, of course, brings bad news elsewhere along the Gulf Coast. CNN's Gary Tuckman is in our Hurricane 1 mobile unit. He's traveling southwest from Gulf Shores and Gulfport, Mississippi, I believe, heading basically in this direction, and he'll be checking in all throughout the route. Gary.
Have deteriorated very quickly. Hurricane 1 is our vehicle that permits us to go live during a hurricane. It's the same technology we used during the beginning of the Iraq War when the military vehicles were rolling across the desert. It allowed us to go live while we moved, and that's what we're doing right now. The sun hasn't come up yet, but here right now, the conditions in Gulfport, Mississippi have deteriorated rapidly. The road that we're on right now, this is US 90 along the beach, is flooding. We want to give you a shot right outside the front window. Driving the car is our producer Tristan. Our engineer Kadani is right here. And you're getting a look right out the front window right now. We just had to turn this vehicle around because the roads have already flooded here at 5:20 in the morning local time. You can tell already hours before the eye is supposed to come close here to Gulfport, Mississippi, that this is going to be a very dangerous situation. There's a mandatory evacuation in place right now in the area. The beach just to our right. 71,000 people live in this city of Gulfport, Mississippi. There are 10 casinos along the beach here in this city of Gulfport, in Biloxi, which is about 15 miles to our east, and in Bay St. Louis, which is about 10 miles to our west. All the casinos were shut down yesterday. It's not clear when they'll reopen. Obviously, it's not clear if they'll survive this powerful Category 4 hurricane. But we'll be in this vehicle, Hurricane 1, all day, driving as safely as we can. Obviously, we're going to be prudent. We all, in this car at least, have family members who love us and care about us and don't want us to go any too dangerous. But right now, this gives you an idea of what's going on here in this area. Back to you.
That's Gary Tuckman in Hurricane 1, who will make his way along the coast, going from east to west, headed in the general direction of where I stand right now, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A lot of the reason we're here in Baton Rouge is, quite frankly, we weren't certain we could continue broadcasting in New Orleans all throughout this storm, given the possibility of significant flooding there. And at 40 feet above sea level, there is less of a concern here. But having said that, the Mississippi goes right through Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And Anderson Cooper is right on the banks of that river, and it's already showing some signs of swelling quite a bit. Anderson?
Yeah, Miles, just in the last 30 minutes or so, the water has started to come up a little bit. Not anything huge, but we're definitely seeing more waves coming ashore. You can see there's this buoy, which is basically kind of washed ashore. I'm not sure how long that has been here. But as you said, the reason we are here in Baton Rouge is that it is higher ground than New Orleans. This, of course, at river level, but most of the city is built 50 to 60 feet higher than the Mississippi River. There are levees between where I am right now and the streets of Baton Rouge. So it is very unlikely that there are going to be the kind of storm surges that would actually precipitate some sort of flooding in the streets of Baton Rouge. And a lot of the flooding, if there is any in Baton Rouge, may come from rainfall, depending on how long this rain sustains. Right now, it's relatively light. I mean, it's not a pleasant day to be outside or by any means, but it's not the stinging, hard rain that we've seen in hurricanes past. Likely, as these winds pick up significantly, we will be seeing it. And even though Baton Rouge is out of the eastern part of that eye wall, the eastern part, the most violent part of the storm, we are anticipating some very high winds here, sustained winds. Chad Meyer said it could be 100+ mile-an-hour winds. That is certainly nothing to take lightly. The people here in Baton Rouge are not under mandatory evacuations, but earlier, hours ago, we have seen many people driving across I-10, down I-10, across the bridge, which is over there on my right. over to the west side of Baton Rouge and heading all the way over to Texas, where there has just been lines of traffic for hours and hours and hours. Really never seen anything like it. As we were driving east from Houston, just the road heading west was just completely packed with cars, and we anticipate it probably still is because it was moving very slowly, Miles. But again, hard to tell how bad the storm is going to be here, but we'll be bringing it to you live, of course, as we always do, Miles.
Anderson Cooper, just a couple of miles from me on the banks of the muddy Mississippi as it swells this morning as Katrina comes ashore. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to an expert here at Louisiana State University who's spent an awful lot of time looking at the potential effects of hurricanes. He's concerned if there is significant flooding in New Orleans, it will create a toxic gumbo. We'll explain what that is as American Morning continues.
Keep watching CNN, your hurricane headquarters.
Welcome back. I'm Miles O'Brien reporting live this morning from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where the weather is actually a little bit better now. Those bands, as we say, heavy rain and heavy winds coming through. We've been talking a lot about Category 4, Category 5. Let's try to give you a sense of what precisely we're talking about. First of all, Category 4 or Category 5, these are killer storms. We're talking about in excess of 130 miles an hour gets you into the Category 4 range, all the way up to 154 miles an hour. And then beyond that, or at 155, it goes to Category 5, which are the strongest hurricanes we know of. Only 3 times before in U.S. history have Category 5 storms hit the U.S. mainland. In 1935, an unnamed storm that hit the Keys. In 1969, Camille, which caused some tremendous damage in the Mississippi area, but didn't hit, fortunately, the city of New Orleans at that time. And, of course, in 1992, Hurricane Andrew, which is by far the most costly storm ever to hit the U.S., $25 billion in damage. And yet the fatalities, the number of people who died as a result, relatively low, about 40, as compared to more than 400 during that 1935 Category 5 storm. So clearly, over time, the amount of information is out there and the amount of knowledge and the amount of ability to let people know about these storms has helped quite a bit. Let's talk to somebody who spends a lot of time thinking about these things, modeling them, predicting what they might or might not do. He's with Louisiana State University's School of Public Health. We're on the campus of that school right now. Ivor Van Herden is with us now. Ivor, could you please, first of all, just tell us what your concern is as you model this storm and the possible surge for New Orleans?
Our concern was that we would have, because of the size of the storm, catastrophic flooding of New Orleans. In other words, the surge pouring into the city from surrounding areas. Some of these surrounding areas are highly industrialized, a lot of chemical plants, petrochemical facilities. We know because of the winds that New Orleans is going to experience that a lot of stuff's going to come apart. Some of the models estimate 80% of buildings will be totally damaged. So the chemical plants would come apart, those chemicals would leak, get in the water, then flow into New Orleans.
First of all, that figure of 80% is a staggering figure.
It is, and that's the latest estimate I saw at the State Office of Emergency Preparedness before I came here was some areas 92% of all buildings believed to be will be totally destroyed.
And so what we're talking about here is clearly as there's flooding, all those things that are a part of industry, petrochemicals, they're going to be in that flood zone. And clearly it's going to take quite some time for there to be an effective and safe cleanup.
Yes, because not only does it come from outside the city into the city, there's all the chemicals within the city, from the gasoline storage facilities, sewage plants, and of course coffins. We will have a large number of coffins released. This whole mix together in New Orleans is what we term this toxic gumbo.
And when you talk about coffins, because you have a city that is below sea level, that is what happens, and that is just a horrifying thought.
Yeah, we have to bury our people above ground, otherwise the coffins pop out. And we have the same problem with gasoline stations. We can't bury the gas tanks, we put them on the surface. Obviously, as the city floods, those tanks will start to flood, shear their couplings, release the product, and then we have the potential of major fires.
This city has an incredibly extensive system to try to guard against this, levees and pumps. It's just not enough, is it?
No, since the 1930s, we've lost over 1 million acres of our coastal wetlands. And that's our outer line of defense for storm surge. That's what really used to knock the stuffing out of the storm surge. And as a result, every year the potential surges get worse and worse and worse. So this storm, a Category 4, Category 5, is our worst nightmare.
Well, and when you say you've lost a lot of these wetlands, it is in fact the way that those rivers are channeled, those levees themselves, that have caused a lot of those wetlands to go away. So there's a bit of irony here that the levees you build to try to protect actually make things worse.
Yeah, the levees that protect us from the river floods have actually caused us to starve our wetlands to death. Starve them because they no longer get the sediments they need.
What's your biggest concern this morning as you hear of the storm, what it is doing, the fact that it might be wobbling a little to the right? Are you a little less concerned?
Yeah, we would much prefer to see it wobble to the right than to the left. If it goes to the west, we'll see the surge increase dramatically.
And as it stands right now, the surge that you're predicting is on the order of what?
On the eastern side of the city, up to 15, 16 feet, maybe 18 feet. On the western side, 8 to 12 feet.
And the levees themselves are able to withstand how big a surge?
It depends where you are, but generally about 14 to 15 feet.
Okay, so over the top is what the big concern clearly is here.
Yes, and the other thing is if we build the lake Pontchartrain up to the level of the levees, we still get overtopping because of the waves. We're going to have a very wild wave field out there, and that will also overtop the levees.
Ivor Van Herten, thank you very much for being with us. He's with Louisiana State University School of Public Health. Just a horrifying thought, talking about this toxic gumbo, as he puts it, with all these petrochemicals, all the things that go along with an industrial base, and then on top of that to see the possibility of floating coffins, no less. Soledad?
All right. Thanks very much, Miles. We're going to obviously continue to check in with you throughout the morning. Let's bring you up to date on what exactly is happening with Hurricane Katrina. The National Hurricane Center is now telling us that the northern eye wall has made landfall. It's happening just east of Grand Isle. We are watching very closely as this hurricane heads right to the Gulf Coast. A couple of things you need to know. It looks like the winds are about 150 miles per hour. That makes it a Category 4 hurricane, downgraded from a Category 5. But of course, as Miles pointed out just a few moments ago, both of those killer storms is looking also more and more as if coastal Mississippi is going to bear the brunt of this storm. All eyes have been on New Orleans, of course, with all those issues they have being below sea level. But it seems as if the storm is turning slightly, and that in fact might lessen some of the damage to New Orleans. We have reporters all around the area. We're also going to continue to check in with the CNN Weather Center in Atlanta for the very latest on Katrina's path. That's all ahead as a special edition of American Morning continues in just a moment. Stay with us.